Lieutenant Commander Ewan Montague sat in a dimly lit basement room beneath Whitehall, staring at a map of Europe. The situation was grim. Allied forces needed to invade southern Europe, and there was only one logical target: Sicily. The problem? It was so obvious that even Hitler knew it was coming. German and Italian forces were already reinforcing the island, turning it into a fortress. "We need to make them think we're going somewhere else," said Flight Lieutenant Charles Cholmondeley, pacing the room nervously. But how? How do you convince an entire German intelligence apparatus to believe a lie? Montague tapped his pen against the desk, thinking. Then he remembered something, a memorandum from earlier in the war. An idea so outrageous it had been dismissed as fantasy. It was called the Trout Memo, written by Rear Admiral John Godfrey and his assistant, a naval intelligence officer named Ian Fleming. "What if," Montague said slowly, "make it look like an officer drowned at sea, carrying secret invasion plans? Plans for the wrong target." Cholmondeley stopped pacing. "You mean a dead body? An actual corpse? Why not? The Germans are meticulous. If they find a British officer washed ashore with top-secret documents, they'll believe it. They'll think they've stumbled onto genuine intelligence." "That's insane." "Exactly," Montague smiled grimly. "Which is why it might just work. The best lies are the ones too crazy to be fiction." Thus began Operation Mincemeat, perhaps the most macabre and brilliant deception in military history. A plan that would require a corpse, a fictional identity, fake love letters, and nerves of absolute steel. The first problem was finding a suitable body. It couldn't be just any corpse. It needed to be a man who appeared to have drowned, whose death wouldn't raise suspicions, and whose family wouldn't ask questions. Montague approached Sir Bernard Spilsbury, Britain's most famous pathologist, with the unusual request. "We need a body," Montague explained carefully. "Someone who died recently, whose cause of death could plausibly be drowning, and whose identity must remain absolutely secret." Spilsbury raised an eyebrow, but asked no questions. In wartime, strange requests were common. After weeks of searching through morgue records, he found the perfect candidate, Glyndwr Michael, a 34-year-old homeless man who had died from accidentally ingesting rat poison containing phosphorus. "The phosphorus will make the body look like drowning," Spilsbury explained. "Fluid in the lungs. It's not perfect, but in a body that's been in seawater for days, a Spanish pathologist won't be able to tell the difference." Montague looked at the body, pale, thin, nobody's son, nobody's friend. A man who died alone and forgotten. Now he would become the most important corpse in military history. "We'll give him a name," Montague said quietly. "Captain William Martin, Royal Marines. We'll give him a life, a story, people who loved him. Even in death, he'll serve his country." The team worked with obsessive attention to detail. Major Martin, they promoted the fictional character, needed to be completely real. One inconsistency, one false note, and the entire operation would collapse. Jean Leslie, a young clerk at MI5, was brought in for a crucial role. "We need a fiancé," Montague explained. "Love letters, a photograph. Something personal that makes him human." Jean blushed but agreed. She wrote passionate love letters to a man who never existed, signing them Pam. She included a photograph of herself, wrote about their plans to marry, complained playfully about him working too hard. The letters were perfect, intimate enough to be genuine, innocent enough to be believable. They filled Martin's pockets with the detritus of a real life, a receipt for an engagement ring, ticket stubs from a London theatre, an overdraft notice from his bank, to make him seem human, flawed. A stern letter from his father about the overdraft keys to a flat in London. A photo of Pam, used cigarette papers and matches. The most important items were two letters, one from Lieutenant General Archibald Nye to General Harold Alexander, another from Lord Louis Mountbatten to Admiral Andrew Cunningham. Both letters mentioned in passing that the Allied invasion would target Sardinia and Greece, not Sicily. The letters were brilliantly crafted. They never directly said, "We are invading Sardinia." Instead, they referenced it casually, the way real officers would discuss operations. Sicily was mentioned only as a cover story, a feint to distract from the real target. "The Germans are smart," Montague told his team. "They'll be suspicious of anything too obvious. But if they think they've intercepted something they weren't meant to see, something casual, something between colleagues, they'll believe it. The body was packed in dry ice and sealed in a special canister marked "Optical Instruments, Handle with Care." Only a handful of people knew what was really inside. The canister was loaded onto the submarine HMS Seraph under the command of Lieutenant Norman Jewell. Jewell was told only what he needed to know. He was to transport a special package and deploy it off the coast of Spain. He wasn't told what the package contained until the submarine was already at sea. When he was finally briefed, Jewell stared at the canister in disbelief. "You're joking. We're going to float a dead body into Spain with fake invasion plans." "That's exactly what we're doing," said the intelligence officer who'd accompanied the canister. "And Lieutenant, this operation is so secret that if you're captured, you know nothing. This conversation never happened. That canister contains optical instruments, understood?" "Understood, sir." As HMS Seraph slipped beneath the dark waters of the Atlantic, heading south toward Spain, Jewell couldn't help but think, this is either brilliant or absolutely mad. Possibly both. Inside the canister, packed in ice, the body of Glinda Michael had become Major William Martin, Royal Marines. A man who never lived was about to change the course of the war. At 04:30 hours on April 30th, 1943, HMS Seraph surfaced in the dark waters off the coast of Huelva, Spain. The location was carefully chosen. Huelva was home to a German agent known to be active and well connected to the Abwehr, German military intelligence. The crew opened the canister. The smell was overwhelming. Even with dry ice, decomposition had begun. This was actually perfect. It would make the drowning more believable. They dressed the body in a Royal Marines uniform, complete with medals and insignia. Around his wrist was a chain attached to a briefcase containing the fake documents. They needed to make it look like Martin had been clutching the briefcase when he died, refusing to let go even as he drowned. Lieutenant Jewell read the 39th Psalm over the body, proper burial at sea, even for a man who'd been dead for months. "Lord, let me know mine end, and the number of my days." Then they gently lowered the body into the water. For a moment it floated face down, the briefcase bobbing beside it. The current began to carry it toward shore. "Godspeed, Major Martin," Jewell whispered. "Do your duty." HMS Seraph submerged and slipped away into the darkness. Behind them, the corpse that would deceive Hitler drifted toward Spain. Then they contacted German intelligence. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, head of the Abwehr, received the report within hours. His Madrid station chief, Karl Erich Kuhlenthal, was ecstatic. "We have intercepted what appears to be authentic British invasion plans. The target is not Sicily, it's Sardinia and Greece." In London, British intelligence waited. They'd planted subtle indicators that would tell them if the Germans had taken the bait. A specific phrase used in German communications, troop movements that would only make sense if they believed the false information. Days passed. The tension in the basement office was unbearable. José Antonio Rey Maria, a Sardina fisherman, found the body at dawn. It was floating in the surf near Punta Umbria, the briefcase still chained to its wrist. He immediately contacted the authorities. Spain was officially neutral, but everyone knew where their sympathies lay. The local Spanish military took possession of the body, and more importantly, the briefcase. Captain Francisco Elvira Alvarez of the Spanish Navy examined the body. His report noted, male approximately 30 to 35 years old, wearing British Royal Marines uniform. Body shows signs of having been in water for several days. Cause of death appears to be drowning. Identity documents indicate Captain William Martin, Royal Marines. The briefcase was another matter. It was clearly marked secret and locked. Spanish military intelligence carefully opened it, photographed every document inside, then resealed it to make it look like it had never been opened. The photographed documents reached Hitler himself. He studied them carefully, his intelligence officers standing nervously by. Could this be a deception? Hitler asked. Adolf von Bentivegni, head of Abwehr counterintelligence, shook his head. Unlikely, my Fuhrer. The body was genuine. Our Spanish contacts confirmed it. The documents were carried in a manner consistent with a courier who refused to let them go even while drowning. The letters reference Sicily only as a cover story, which suggests that Sicily is precisely what they want us to think is a cover story. It was the perfect circular logic. The Germans had outthought themselves. Hitler made his decision. Sardinia and Greece are the targets. Strengthen those defenses immediately. Sicily is a feint. Leave only minimal forces there. German troops were redeployed. Panzer divisions that should have gone to Sicily were sent to Greece. Naval resources were directed to defend Sardinia. The entire defensive posture of southern Europe was shifted, based on letters carried by a homeless man who died from eating rat poison. In London, Montagu received the intercepted German communications. The specific phrases he'd been watching for appeared. The Germans had swallowed it completely. He turned to Cholmondeley with tears in his eyes. It worked. My God, it actually worked. They'd done something unprecedented. They'd convinced the German high command, including Hitler himself, that a carefully constructed lie was the truth. When Allied forces landed on Sicily on July 10, 1943, they expected fierce resistance. What they found instead shocked them. The defenses were far lighter than anticipated. German forces were undermanned, under-equipped, and clearly surprised. General George S. Patton, commanding the U.S. 7th Army, radioed back to headquarters. Either the Germans are incompetent, or someone convinced them we were going somewhere else. Resistance is moderate. We're advancing faster than planned. British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery's 8th Army reported similar conditions. The invasion, which planners had feared might be a bloodbath like the later Normandy landings, proceeded with surprisingly low casualties. In the basement office in London, Montagu and his team listened to the reports. They couldn't tell anyone. The operation was so secret that even most Allied commanders didn't know about it. But they knew. A homeless man who died alone in a London morgue had saved thousands of Allied lives. The invasion of Sicily succeeded in 38 days. It knocked Italy out of the war, forced Hitler to divert resources from the Eastern Front, and paved the way for the eventual invasion of mainland Europe. All because the Germans believed a lie carried by a corpse. After the war ended, Montagu faced a dilemma. The story of Operation Mincemeat was so extraordinary that he wanted to tell it. But Glyndwr Michael's family still didn't know their son's body had been used for a military operation. In 1950, Montagu approached Michael's family through intermediaries. The conversation was delicate. During the war, the intermediary explained carefully, "Your son's body was used for a highly classified operation. We can't provide details, but his contribution may have saved thousands of lives." Michael's sister was silent for a long moment. "He died alone," she finally said, "homeless, forgotten. You're telling me he mattered, that he did something important?" "Yes, more important than you can imagine." "Then you have our permission. Tell the story." "But," she paused, "keep his real name secret. Let him be remembered as the hero you made him, not the broken man he was." Montagu published The Man Who Never Was in 1953. The book became an international bestseller and was adapted into a film. But he kept his promise. He never revealed Glyndwr Michael's real identity. In the book, Major Martin remained just that, a man who never was. It wasn't until 1996, long after all participants were dead, that historians finally identified Glyndwr Michael as the body used in Operation Mincemeat. In the small cemetery of Nuestra Señora de la Soledad in Huelva, Spain, there's a grave marked William Martin, born 29th March 1907, died 24th April 1943, beloved son of John Glyndwr, Martin and Antonia Martin of Cardiff. Wales dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. It is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. Tourists visit regularly. Some leave flowers. Most don't know the full story, that there was no William Martin, that these dates are fiction, that the man buried here was a homeless drifter who died from poison, whose body was conscripted into service after death. In 2016, a small memorial plaque was added to the grave, finally acknowledging the truth. Glyndwr Michael served as William Martin, RM in life, forgotten. In death, unforgettable. Historians still debate the ethics of Operation Mincemeat. Was it right to use a man's body without initial consent? To create an entire false identity? To bury him under a name that wasn't his? But they don't debate its effectiveness. Operation Mincemeat is considered one of the most successful deception operations in military history. Knocked Italy out of the war, forced Germany to defend on multiple fronts, diverted resources from the Eastern Front, helping the Soviet advance, paved the way for D-Day by forcing Germany to spread its forces thin. One homeless man, dead from poison, became a Royal Marine officer, gained a fiancé, a family, a life story, and changed the course of World War II. The irony isn't lost on historians. Glinda Michael spent his life invisible, forgotten, overlooked. In death, he became the most important corpse in history, a man who never was, who did something no living man could have done. Every year on April 30th, the anniversary of his burial at sea, a small ceremony is held at the grave in Huelva. Veterans, historians, and locals gather to honor Major William Martin. But a few also pause to remember Glinda Michael, the forgotten man who in death finally mattered. A British veteran once said at the grave, "Most soldiers fight with courage and die with honor. This man did neither. He was already dead. Yet his service was as vital as any commando raid, any battle, any medal. He proved that in war, truth is so precious that she must be attended by a bodyguard of lies. And sometimes that bodyguard is a corpse with a briefcase."